Volkswagen ID buzz. I can't tell you, actually I will tell you, how long I've been waiting to drive this very vehicle. Sorry about that. I've been waiting for nearly 25 years since Volkswagen revealed the first microbus concept way back in 2001. In fact, I recall seeing the Volkswagen Bully concept at the Geneva Motor Show and the actual concept that led to this at the North American International Auto Show in 2017. Almost 25 years to get to this very moment. At least that's the case for me. And I can summarize more or less how I feel about the ID buzz is that I absolutely, completely love it. And yet, I don't like it at all. Look, let's do this, okay? The media buzz, I had to, surrounding the Volkswagen ID buzz is essentially dead. They're not selling, they're not moving. Volkswagen is not necessarily stuck with them, but there are none on the road. Which is why the, how can I call it? The social buzz surrounding the ID buzz is huge. I mean, I can't go anywhere without getting thumbs upped, I guess, or being stopped in traffic, or having people say, hey, nice van, how much, what, blah, 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 range, power, how cool is it, whatever. So the social buzz, because of its rarity, is huge. But the reality is that this van is a catastrophic flop for Volkswagen. Clearly, it's not a flop for its styling, because it is an absolute complete hit. But the thing is that if this van was supposed to attract, like older people say, such as I, even though some disposable income is possible, at a starting price of $81,000, despite the 20-inch wheels, the power sliding doors, hatch, LEDs, the 12-way leatherette covered, cooled powered front seats, the buzz box, a 12.9-inch touchscreen display, heads-up display, and all of this, it's just too damn expensive. Just too damn expensive. And if you want a 4Motion model like this one, you gotta add about $5,000 more. And then if you want a few other options, such as a two-tone paint, which you absolutely have to get, you have no choice. I've seen all black, and I don't like, but you gotta go two-tone. The orange, this is Cabana Blue. It is a necessity, but that's an extra $1,500. Then there's this roof up here, glass roof, which is another $2,000. So as it sits before you, this van, which is essentially exactly how I would spec my own personal ID buzz, because I had, before I got my Kia EV9, $90,000. There is no way that this retails or has a retail value of $15,000 more than my own Kia EV9, because it has less equipment, less range, less power, but it is a damn cooler. I'll give it that. Pricing is one thing, but then, how can I put this? Before we go on, I usually summarize kind of my thoughts on the vehicle. The thing is that this is a semi-awesome minivan, but it's not a really, really good EV. Okay, so one of the reasons why I say semi-awesome minivan, well, I'll show you. That, by the way, lights up. It's kind of cool, maybe a little bit over the top, but I don't know. Anyway, so 527 liters of space is what you get behind the third row. I'm going to pretend, or assume, I should say, that that includes the removal of the shelf, all the bracketing and hinges and struts for the shelf itself, and by removing these baskets. 527. Not huge, not great. It could be worse, but in fact it is bad because of the huge battery or the oversized, not quite efficient electric motors. There's no way for the third row to actually go into the floor, so it sits on top. You can remove it. I'll leave it at that. How many people will actually do that? I don't know, because if you need a third row like I do, but occasionally don't, this is just a terrible setup. 2,138 liters behind the second row, which is extremely generous. This is just not good. Okay, so like all good minivans, you have these hold on. Not a big fan of that, I'll tell you that much. But this I do love. Power sliding doors and the power tailgate, as you saw. Just wonderful. Definitely the best aspect of any and all minivans. Another cool thing, Easter eggs all over the place. Now the second row is completely brilliant because you get the captain's seats when you go 4Motion for the $86,000+. So the access is fabulous. And you have this nice highway between the seats and, well, here's a cool thing. This is the buzz box. I'm going to try and do this with one hand, but it actually can move in different areas of the van. So you press the latch, pull up. The tough part is going to be moving it back here. Apologies if the shot isn't great, but, and there we go. It is anchored down here. So for whatever reason, if you only have 2 passengers, legs, it's a weird shot, but I think you get the idea. And just to put it back, you just have to press on the tab and attempt to line it up with the notches, which I will try and do, and will fail miserably at it one-handed. So we're going to leave it like that for now. So this means that access, just close those, access to the third row is brilliant. And then, as you can very well see, the seat height is very high and the amount of leg space is ultra generous. Headroom, visibility, everything is fantastic. You got your USB ports, cup holder, absolutely everything you could possibly want in here. It is brilliant. It is a 6-seater conversion, version I should say. So the rear bench has 2 spots, but loads of room, and that's a good shot of the glass panoramic roof, which can be opaque or can let the sunshine in with the controls via the screen over there. So one unfortunate aspect, but somehow Volkswagen made it cool, is the rear glass. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually completely slide down into the doors as it does in many other minivans. Only a small portal, if you will, actually opens up. So what happens is that the glass here slides back over the other portion of glass in order to reveal the only available opening in the second row. Okay, so let's continue our interior exploration of the Buzz. But before we do that, I want to say something about this. This is cheap. This is unacceptable. Maybe in a base Jetta, but not in an $80,000+ ID Buzz. And even this is kind of okay, but this is really, really cheap. The leatherette is fine. I won't take anything away from the fact that it's very versatile and very user-friendly, a bunch of cubby holes and all that. It's great. But this, it irks me every time I open the door. What doesn't irk me are the seats, leatherette, perforated, kind of cool, I'll give it that. And it has the massaging function, which is really unnecessary. It only serves to justify the high pricing of this, but anyway, no point. Power, lumbar, and all the settings. ID Buzz, kind of cool. The one odd thing, now it's this step. If you know anything about the Type 2, the T2, Volkswagen, the air-cooled bus that inspired the ID Buzz, there's a step to get into the van. Now, obviously there needs to be a step into because this is actually a fairly high lift to get in. But the problem with this step is that it's only about 2.5 inches below the actual floor, meaning that it's really awkward to get in and out of. Okay, maybe this is an old man complaint, but I've had a number of people get in and out of the van, and they've all, without exception, mentioned that the step is really, really weird. So I'm gonna say, I don't even know what foot to use. Too high, sticking out, all the way down, dropping in, and hello, ID Buzz. Well, this is your 5.3-inch display, which gives you all the necessary driving information. You can see 96%, it was 100% when I left the house, and it had about 450 kilometers of indicated range, which is far, far more than what you normally get, at least according to NRCan. Now, oh, that's interesting. So this is your important, let's just go there, screen, the screen on the 12.9-inch touchscreen display. This is pretty much your shortcuts to your vehicle favorites, which you can configure. So actually, let's do the roof. Okay, so we've selected it. So you see it's opaque. Smart glass. Boom, you can see the sun. Boom, it's gone. Kind of neat. A lot of money. Anyway, so let's go back to this. Oh, well, anyway. Okay, let's just do it the way the van wants to do it. You can configure all your stuff. This is very much like what you had in the first Mark 8 Golf with all of the information in these menus. For the most part, they're still very user-friendly. All your apps and everything you can set up. Driving assist controls, you can do image view or the list. It's decent. What isn't, though, is the haptic stuff. Now, I know Volkswagen's already admitted that they want to change many of these controls. And the volume works 1 out of 2 times, and even when you punch it and press it, I tried to actually film the difficulty that I had in adjusting the volume, but obviously it started working when I started playing, when I started recording is what I mean. And it's the same thing for the haptic controls on the steering wheel. They are terrible, horrible, and they're, for the most part, going to be gone as soon as this thing gets a facelift. Hey, your controls for the side doors, and I do like the fact that you can actually switch them off so that the kids in the back can't use them. Cup holders. I showed you about the Buzz box. There's a ton of storage in here. It's really, really useful. Again, the door bins. I love this pocket. Another thing I do really like is the visibility. You really feel like you're sitting in a greenhouse. I love glass. Well, I do, except unless it's over my head. But this is fantastic side glass. It's a really, really cool place to be. And I was complaining about the materials and the finish. This is very cheap, but it looks okay. So let's give it half points. And I think I'll end that on that point. Okay, so drive. So yeah, above and beyond the drive modes, you do have a B drive mode, which is a maximum battery brake regen, unlike, say, the Koreans where you have paddles and multiple settings, this only has the one. And to be quite honest, I've been doing most of my driving with it on, and it's really well calibrated for city driving. It won't come to a full stop, unfortunately, the van, but there is a hold mode, so I guess that's beyond acceptable. Beyond acceptable also applies to the base model rear-wheel drive single motor setup, which offers 282 horsepower. Made it to the same for all 91 kilowatt hour, that's gross battery, which is capable of 200 kilowatt charging, DC fast charging, which is, it's just absolutely acceptable. In fact, I'd say anything over 150, 160 is getting better. Nothing like some of the Koreans or the Germans that are at 300 plus. But you always obviously have to find a charging station that will feed you that much juice. Range for the base rear drive model is NRCan right around 380 kilometers if memory serves, maybe a little bit more than that. But when you step up to the 4Motion, which in my mind is an absolute must in Canada, you just can't get around that. You need it. You do have access to now 335 horsepower. Range does take a mild hit. So you're looking at 372 kilometers according to NRCan. The reality, though, is that with the 335 horsepower, despite weighing 6,300 pounds as set up, 6.4 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, so it's actually fairly quick. But, and this is where the buts kind of creep up and make this a barely acceptable EV for the price. There was the range, but the thing is, the energy consumption is very high. Even NRCan says you can expect to average about 25 to 26 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers in mixed driving. That is huge. I'm averaging right around there, and I've been doing a lot of city driving and very little highway driving. So I can imagine that that number will continue to creep upwards. Now what that means, if you do a little bit of math, that's 91 kilowatt hours gross. So I forget what the usable number, unfortunately, but it's right around 80 and change. At 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, there's almost no way that the indicated 450 kilometers was going to be a reality in, again, mixed driving. That's just not good. doesn't work. I understand it's a minivan, it's not the most aerodynamic thing in the world, but the efficiency, the range, it's unacceptable for the price point. Another thing, though, is that, okay, so the ride quality is nice. Multi-link rear setup. It's very German, where everything is sorted out meticulously in order for it to handle very, very well. But unfortunately, the sound deadening in this vehicle is non-existent. I'm doing only 55 kilometers an hour and I can hear wind and tire noise. Unacceptable. And on the highway, it just gets much worse. I don't know if the mic picked it up as I was on the highway, but that's just terrible. It gives me the impression that this is a cheaply insulated, cheaply configured vehicle. And as spec'd for $90,000, it's just completely unacceptable. But, you know, see what I can do in a minivan. Normally, although I can do it in a Sienna too, but look, I can end on the fact that steering is nice, braking is nice. Just the overall driving is rewarding because it feels real. It's not so isolated, which is a complaint, but also for me anyway, not necessarily a complaint. It's a fine minivan. It's an okay EV. It's way too expensive. And all of those things explain why it's a flop. But I'm hoping that the facelifted version will fix most of these issues and make it the interesting and very popular electric minivan that it should have been from the very beginning.